Hello everybody there, it's Mystic Games coming at you with an Against the Storm video. Today we're going to be talking about upgrades, essentially the fundamentals of upgrades and how they work. It's set up like a talent tree, so if you guys have ever played any game where you go up a talent tree, that's kind of how it's set up. You can access the second row immediately, but you won't be able to access this one until you unlock this one. That's how talent trees work in most games. Just so everyone knows, you kind of have different upgrades. Like you have fundamental upgrades. Those are like general gameplay upgrades. You have Citadel resource modifiers. Those increase your victory rewards for completing settlements. You have embarkation bonus rewards, which allow you access to more resources every time you go out on a trip. You have the embarkation points, which gives you access to more of these per every trip. You have cornerstones, which generally increase your passive bonuses that you get throughout gameplay. It starts at the beginning of the game you get one, and then you get one after every storm generally. There are a few other ways to obtain these, but that's in-game events and such. You also have essential buildings, which I don't think you see for a minute. These are buildings that will be automatically added to your blueprint pool that are given to you, so you don't have to worry about these coming up anymore in your blueprints as like a random choice. It gives you this building permanently for every run. You also have rep increase, and let me find it. So these you have something like this. I think this is the only one actually for this kind of increase, but it gives you an additional blueprint, which is really good for when you're trying to select buildings. You have permanent embarkation goods, which is kind of like a teal or sea green. These are permanent embarkation goods. What the difference between these goods and these goods are, these are given to you at the beginning of every run. You will now gain 5 planks every time you start a settlement. It's just free. You don't have to put any of your embarkation points here to buy the resources at the beginning. Very good upgrades. And then you have one, it's kind of like a really random choice somewhere. Trade route, here it is. Trade route limit. You gain 1 permanent trade route to all active trade routes. So you have a couple other random ones, but most of them kind of fall in fundamental upgrades, Citadel resources, etc., etc., etc. I want to start this video by breaking this into 3 parts. We're going to talk about early game, mid game, and late game. And we're going to go row by row because that's the easiest way for me to do it. Again, as you learn the game, you can make a decision if you want to jump rows, but I'm going to tell you what I consider the best in each row. For this row, obviously, I choose this one. It's the only option, right? Even if I was to jump here, I would actually take this one first every time because these are not permanent buffs, whereas this will help me level up. It's a permanent thing. For the second row, I would actually choose this one because as a new player, you want to get as many of these resources to upgrade this as quick as possible, and this will help you do that. Then I would pick this. This is a decent embarkation bonus. For this row, I'd go with number 3. This gives you an additional bonus at the beginning of each year, which is super good. You'll learn as you go that these are very important. This just gives you one more choice to pick from, which is always good. We like options when we have RNG. For this one, we pick embarkation points. This allows you to take more stuff with you and give you more options. Then I would go with this, which is an embarkation bonus, which is this is another really good one. I actually do like this one. That gives you bonus villagers. And just a quick gameplay tip for everybody, I would say you want to start your settlement with at least 9 workers if possible. So sometimes this is almost a must-pick choice. Otherwise, you're going to have a really slow start. This is a fundamental upgrade. It's a very good upgrade. The issue is at this point in the game, you really shouldn't need control over food consumption unless you're playing on extremely hard difficulties. which I wouldn't recommend for new players. If you're watching this guide, and you're a newer player, this isn't a choice that you would need because you're going to be playing on lower difficulties. This is better once you get comfortable with the game and you're playing on higher difficulties. For this row, I picked number 3, Reputation Pool Increase. This is similar to the Cornerstone one that was right here, but this one gives you more building options. So I believe you start with 3, this will give you 4. So pretty much you might get that one additional building might be the building you really want to work with, and the other 3 might be junk. This gives you that option now. The next one is Fundamental Upgrade for establishing trade routes. Trade routes are extremely good. They help you make money. They help you sell things. And it becomes easier to fulfill these as you get more upgrades, but it is a good one to have early game. Start learning trade routes. They are very important for your success. Then I say upgrade your hearth. I actually put that at number 2. This will give you bonuses for resolve, production, and speed of just making goods. Then I would go with essential buildings. This is going to get added permanently to your blueprint pool. So again, it helps you with this because now you don't have to worry about the human house showing up in your blueprint pools. You'll just automatically have it. So not only does it save you on having to worry about getting a blueprint for it, which is a waste of a slot, you just have it. And if you have humans, it's very good because then you have their housing. And then I would go with the embarkation goods. Again, these are another good 2 options, especially when they cost 1. They tend to give you more than the basic food options that you would get initially. For row 6 here, I went with I went with planks. This is actually row 5. I apologize, guys. I went with planks. This gives you them as a starting good for every settlement. You do not have to put points into it. You just now get planks. Planks are a very basic building resource. Having this to start will just make your whole beginning of the game go a lot smoother and be a lot quicker. After this option, I picked the Cornerstone rerolls. So every time at the beginning of the season, you get a chance to pick a bonus. As I said earlier, you will have a little button here that if you don't like the 4 choices at this point, because you should have picked that option down there, I told you to. You'll have 4 choices. If you don't like any of the 4 choices, you can hit the reroll button. You have 1 time to do that. You gain charges from this and other ways throughout the game. But it's good to have a reroll, because every once in a while you'll just pull not good stuff. After that, embarkation points are always good. It just allows you to choose better things and resources and bonuses at the beginning of your thing to give you more success. Then I picked being able to reroll paying with amber for blueprints, which you will get the 4 choices and you'll have a reroll, which is free, and then you'll have like 5 amber, 10 amber, and then so forth and on. And I wouldn't recommend using this a ton, but I would recommend that, you might need to use it 2-3 times in your runs. If you start going higher than that, unless you have a really good flow of gold, you are probably going to be hurting. Then I would go with the beaver house. Again, it removes it from your blueprints. It gives you beaver houses. All good stuff. And then I would go with the upgrade for the mines in the ore veins. I don't find this very useful. It depends on the build and what you're doing in that run, but generally this would be very low for me. For this one, this gives you more embarkation goods. So this counts for both the planks that are permanent and the red ones that are not permanent. So instead of getting 5 planks, you'll get the 6 planks, and then instead of getting the 40 food or whatever it is, or 30 food, you'll get 36 food. So it helps a lot in the beginning of the game. It just gives you more starting resources. After that, I would choose this because this gives you access to rain power. This is extremely strong, and it's really, really good in the first 2 tiers, which I believe are Settler and Pioneer, because you have no Blight Rot, and we're not going to get into that today, but you essentially have no negative side to using water, and therefore this is very powerful. Embarkation goods are always good. As I said, this is just a permanent 10 pipes. You don't have to put any points into it. You just get it now on everyone, which is just a solid upgrade. You also have access to additional wares here, which are pretty solid for when you have the trader come. He always will have like blueprints or cornerstones on the bottom. They're always good to take a look at. Sometimes you can get some really good ones, and it can give you a really good edge. You just need to have amber for it. Then we go with the essential building. Again, it removes it from your blueprint pool, gives you lizard housing. Not much more to say about that. Then I would go with this. It just gives you fuel, and these are both used in world events, which can be helpful. And then I would go with the herbalist camp. I'm not a big fan of the herbalist camp. Very rare map on certain maps where you might want to just get this, but it's unlikely. So that's what I consider early game, is the first 6 tiers. We're going to start talking mid game now. I would go with number 4. Again, just every time you're successfully completing a settlement, you get more resources. Then I would go with 1. It lowers the prices of all the perks and blueprints that I just talked about there a little bit in the trader shop. Then I would go with number 2, upgrade your hearth even more. It gives you the final bonus that I was talking about earlier. Then I would go with number 3. This is an additional embarkation point. This is always good. It's a permanent status, permanent bonus. You can kind of put things where you want. And then you would go with the house. Out of most of the rows in this game, I just want to mention this. This is a really good row. Like, nothing here is what I would say, like, bad. You could kind of really go in any order you want. That's just the way I would do it. That was a pretty solid row when I was looking through everything. I felt really good about that one. For this row, you want to get the bricks. Getting the advanced basic building resources is super good early game. I highly, highly recommend picking these, and it's just a static permanent buff to your settlements. Then I would go with number 1. And you'll be like, well, these are embarkation bonuses, not goods that I automatically get. Why would I want this? Because you don't have access to fabric. I almost always, currently in my playthrough, because I'm about to unlock the permanent fabric, I do not have it yet, but it's higher up. This is a very good option, because then you can put your points into this. As long as it's not super expensive, I would highly recommend doing that. It will help you out a ton. So yeah. For the next one, I picked adding a faction to the trade routes. It just gives you more to do in the beginning of the game with trade routes. Then I believe I picked the lizard starting ability. This is like a static. If you get lizards, you get 10 tools. If you don't get lizards, you don't get this bonus. That's why I kind of put it towards the bottom of the row. And then I picked 3. This is a custom run. Essentially, you can set up your own run. You'll know what it means once you get to this point and you unlock this. It just allows custom runs. So it's more of a fun thing than you need it. You could actually skip this, go to the next row probably, and not have to worry about this for a while until you need something in this row. That's the only problem. But yeah, it is fun to have. Here we have trade route limits increase. And yeah, it's good to have trade routes. To have more trade routes that you can have is better. It gives you more access to money. Money is very strong. Embarkation points, always good. Permanent buff. Definitely take it. Starting ability for the beavers is pretty good. It also extends trade offers by 1 for each of the trade routes you have, which is good. But it only works when you have beavers, so there's the downside. Then I would go with the time-sensitive upgrades. This does affect every settlement in-game. This is not a custom mode, right? Because that's your custom mode. This is actually a direct gameplay mechanic that's very helpful to have. And then I would go with the haulers. I'm not a big fan of haulers. They are good if you have extra workers that you really don't have doing anything and you do not need builders. It's something to just throw people on quickly to keep them busy, essentially. Then I would go with another cornerstone reroll. Then I would go with the starting ability for the humans, which is really strong. It gives you location to fertile soil. Fertile soil is very good You will learn being able to plant crops is very good. It's very strong. It gives you consistent food, especially if you upgrade it using the traders and stuff. You can make it faster, make it more efficient. One tip I will give you about building your bases and stuff is make sure that when you build your next hearth, because you can make an additional hearth, you kind of put it in a place that's close to your farms. As your farms get farther and farther away from your hearth and your warehouse, it becomes harder. And I would recommend spending the gears that you get on building warehouses next to your farms to make them more efficient, or very close to them. Alrighty, so I'm on 5. I need to go to here. Lower prices. Embarkation points. Essential building, which is the Fox House. And then a Royal Expedition. It's like a daily bonus quest you get later on that you can do that gives you some resources and stuff, but you can also just run a settlement. I didn't really see much of a difference between the two. But cool feature. So for row 11, we're going to go with 1. We're going to go with additional embarkation goods. This counts for everything that you put the points into and the permanent planks, the permanent bricks you have. Very good upgrade. I choose this. Then I would go with this. This is an essential building. This gives you access to food. This will help with resolve. If you're at this point in the game and you're watching me with this list, you understand that you probably... It's good to help with resolve because you're probably playing at higher tiers and you won't be able to just use orders to get through. So there's that. Then you can add a faction to your trade routes. That's always good. Then I would go with the sacrificing the cost in the hearth. Always good. And then starting ability for the harpies. It gives you 50 coats. It's not... This one is, out of most of the starting abilities, this is the one I dislike the most. I wish that they gave you 50 coats and then made coats more effective or something. Like, that would be a more interesting ability for this, in my opinion. That's if the Hooded Horse / Aramite Games watches any of my videos, if I ever get big enough for them to watch these, that would be my recommendation for the starting ability for the harpies, is to make them give 50 coats and then give like a bonus to the, like they last an additional trip to the hearth or something like that, because it would make them way better. You could even cut it down to like 30 coats at that point, just make it like they have double the length. That would probably be a better upgrade. It would put them more in line with the other race upgrades, I feel like. Cornerstone reroll, very good for this tier. This is tier 12 here we're at. Then I would go here, I'd get the caravan slot. It just helps you with your trading, gives you more options, good stuff. This gives you access to the farm. Once you have access to this embarkation bonus, depending on the cost, this is a very good thing to pick because it gives you access to a food building and you will no longer have to waste getting a food building. There's only like one zone that has very small fertile grounds and I wouldn't really recommend picking this. Otherwise, I'd almost always say you want some sort of starting, food field bonus building. Then I went with the foxes, finding geysers. As I said, water is very powerful. In the harder difficulties, it becomes harder to use because there are negatives to it, but in the general sense, it's very good, and this is helpful to be able to find things. And then we go to building storage. I don't rate this super highly, but it isn't bad either. It's just, this is very situational, and there's reasons why I can go into that, but I'm not going to in this video. In this row, I pick more resources for victory. Always upgrading your resources per victory is just good. And getting fabric. Permanent fabric is very good. As I said, this is pretty much where I'm at in my game. I'm about to unlock this. I already got this. I'm going for this next. This would also be what I consider late game. This right here, this line is like your late game now. You're kind of probably a pretty experienced player. You know what you're talking about. You have ideas of how the game works. That's why I feel pretty comfortable making a video, because I'm in, the later stages of the game. Getting bonus amber, very good. Newcomer goods, very good. It just, every time you get a set of people that comes in at the end of every year, they bring goods with them, this increases the goods they give. This gives you access to the plantation. The reason I put this lower than the farm isn't because I don't think it's as good as the farm, but you already have the farm, and this becomes less necessary because you already have an option. This is just like if you've already completed this row, you're on this row essentially, you didn't really want to skip, you could unlock the plantation and then you'd have a choice between these two buildings. You can just choose which one's more important for your style of gameplay. For row 14, I went with Embarkation Range. It's a pretty good upgrade. Then I went with Embarkation Bonus Gears or Parts. They're pretty good. And I think I went with, I want to say it was this one. I want to say it was Hack Goods. Then I went with the Herb Garden for the same reason that you already have access to two other buildings that take fertile soil. Although I highly place the Herb Garden higher than those two almost every time if you're going to only go with one building. And then I go with the Forager's Camp. I actually feel like this is about equal to the Herbalist Camp personally, but some people would probably feel differently. For tier 15 here, I went with number 1, lower prices. The cheaper the better, guys. For number 3, Embarkation Points, fantastic upgrade. Then I went with number 4. This gives you a grace period. So essentially, if you're going to lose, this gives you 30 seconds before you just lose. Very good upgrade. It just pretty much helps you not lose the game when you might lose. Worker capacity. This is just weird to me, but it says gets a permanent 1. That doesn't seem very good to me. I would actually think this should be a 5. But then that would probably be too strong, so that's probably why they made it 1. But I just don't feel like that's really that useful. Someone that has far more experience in the game, if you could tell me why that is good, I would appreciate it. Then I went with the Embarkation Goods. And then I went with the adding haulers to your small warehouses, which I talked about a little bit, putting near farms. But you probably will never need haulers. They're not that useful. As I said, they're kind of like an extra, your extra man. Additional cornerstones for sale, great. That should give you the 6 slots, I believe. Then at that point, you're looking at more Embarkation points. And then you're looking at cornerstone reroll choices. Then you're looking at the Trapper's Camp. And then you're looking at additional faction. I'm going to go back to the Trapper's Camp real quick. So there are maps that give a lot of access to certain foods. And there's one in particular that every time I see it, it doesn't usually have a lot of fertile soil. And it has a lot of meat. And therefore I would actually probably pick this building instead of like a permanent fertile soil building like the Herb Garden or something. And I'd take this personally for that map. But other than that map, it's generally going to be one of those buildings, probably over this every time. For this row, I picked Grace Period at row 17 here. Then I picked Building Storage, because as I said, not super big fan of it, but 20 storage is better than 15 storage in my opinion. And because I've played the game, I have a reason in my mind why that is, but someone may disagree. Then I picked this Embarkation bonus right here. And then I picked this one. And you might be like, well, why is that one better than this one? And I feel like these two, I personally feel like these two goods are used more than these two goods in world events. And having things for world events is very good. So you can get into glades earlier. It's just important. Then I would go with House Upgrade. I haven't got to the fact where I've unlocked these, so I don't have too much to comment on them, but I've heard from higher tier players that the house upgrades are slightly underwhelming. And so we're on our final tier here. I would go with the Grace Period. I would go with the Farm Range, and this can be a negative in some cases. Again, if you're looking at this list and you've gotten to this point in the game, you will understand why I say this is a negative sometimes. But generally this will be a positive, but it can be a negative. Then I would go with your house upgrades. I don't have a particular order. I like beavers a lot, so I'd probably get beavers first, then I would go with harpies, and then I would go with lizards. Anyways, guys, that's my extensive list on your choices for upgrades. If you guys stuck to the end of this video, hurrah for you, because this is a pretty good length. I appreciate you guys watching. Keep a lookout. I probably will do some gameplay videos coming up on this. I'll probably do some just me playing, and then I might do some kind of talking about what everything is on your screen, how things work, what's important, all that kind of stuff to help newer players. Alright. Anyways, I appreciate watching. Mystic Games out. Later, guys.